Hi.
Hi.
I'm Danielle.
I'm Caitlin.
We're Our Time of the Month.
And today we're talking about books.
Our best books of 2020.
Us talking about books was something that book people have been requesting more of. And so here we are.
I mean, I'm reading almost every single day and I love talking about what I'm reading. So thank you for requesting this video.
I alternate between either reading obsessively or not reading at all.
Yes.
And so
I feel like that's very normal.
I'm back into the reading bit. We both use Goodreads to help track the books that we've been reading. You also can see what we're reading, see what we want to read. My username is OTM Caitlin.
And I'm OTM Danielle.
So you can find us if you'd like.
One word.
Yes. Oh, right here up at the top, comment, like, and subscribe.
Yeah, don't forget to ring that bell for notifications so you never miss out on our new videos.
Comment down below what your favorite book of 2020 was, or if you didn't actually get to read it, what you want to read.
So we set intentions every year and one...
Not this year.
No, not this year. But I did set one intention and it's to read an X amount of books.
Yes.
And that's just a personal goal. I've been setting book intentions for probably 6-7 years and I've never met it.
I thought you did last year.
I was one book away this year.
I thought you crushed it last year.
No, I set 52 and I read 37.
Oh, okay.
So I set a goal for 52 and this year I got 51. 51.
I can't even believe it.
It feels worse than 37.
I do believe that, being so close.
Being one away, yeah. But that's okay. I'm going to get it this year. I'm confident.
My intention for this year was 26 books. I did crush it with 31. I think I might keep my intention at the same though.
I think that's probably good.
Because I think the only reason that I truly was able to read that much is because we were in full-on like quarantine lockdown for so long and I was at home.
Right.
But as the world reopens, I will not be able to read that much. I already know. So I think I'm gonna
I will be. I'll be like, I'm sorry, I cannot engage with you guys publicly. I'm reading too many books.
Yes.
So Caitlin and I rent books from the library very frequently. And I actually got a Kindle for Christmas, a Kindle Paperwhite. So I've even been renting ebooks, which is really exciting because I get them instantly.
Yeah. Using our library system website has been one of my favorite things this year.
Especially since they revamped it.
Yes, especially since they revamped it and made it mobile friendly. So my favorite thing to do was actually just to Google like suggested thrillers or whatever, and then I would just go in and request them and then go pick them up. I read a lot of duds this year. Like I read 31 fucking books and I couldn't even put together a 5 that I really liked.
I could put together more than 5 that I really liked, but I did read a lot of 3s. I rated them 3 stars.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of Goodreads is like when the algorithm starts learning what books you're rating at what level, it will start suggesting things to you that they think you'll like. And that's my favorite part about Goodreads. I
wish Goodreads had decimals though.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a 3 feels too harsh.
I agree. Like a 3.5 or 3.75 would seem better.
Exactly. So if we were to do it, we would do it that way.
Totally.
But yeah, so my number 1 would probably be Normal People, which you've probably heard of as a show.
Is that by Sally Rooney or Sarah Rooney? Or
Sally Rooney. The story was really interesting. I also just understood some of the dynamic between the characters. There's like kind of a push-pull between a male and female, the 2 main characters.
Okay.
And I don't know, I just really liked the way that it was written. I thought that it was realistic in these sort of like situationships that the characters are in. Like it's not simple, it's not easy, like no one falls in like some beautiful romantic story where they're caught up. No, it's like kind of shitty and it just makes me think of like
they're like normal people?
Like normal people!
I have seen that on a lot of lists, but I have not added it to mine.
I would. Okay. I like it.
I'm gonna write it down now. Okay, my top book of the year was Winter Garden by Kristin. I really love her writing. I have owned this book for probably 8 years because I bought it when Borders went out of business.
Borders!
Yes. Mike and I would go to Borders every week when they would do like an additional percentage markdown, and we bought hundreds of books. And I had just been letting this one sit on my shelf, which was really a shame. It follows the story of 2 sisters named Nina and Meredith. So it follows Meredith and Nina and their relationship with their parents. So their parents have owned an orchard for a very long time, and their dad gets very ill. Meredith has kind of stayed at home to help take care of the family orchard, and she helps run the business. and Nina is a world-class traveling photographer. Their dad falls very ill, and they call Nina and say, like, you've got to come home and say goodbye. So while they're all congregating around his deathbed, you learn that their relationship with their mom is very strained and not warm at all. Their mom is Russian, and she's older, and she's very reserved and does not emote anything. And so while he's on his deathbed, he makes them all promise that they will work together to understand their mother's history, and she's going to tell them a fairy tale in its entirety. So when they were growing up, she would tell like bits and pieces of this fairy tale, but she never finished it. And so they agree to listen to their mom's story, and it's broken down over, I don't know, maybe a year, the book. And so you go back in time and you learn this fairy tale about World War II, I believe, and it all takes place in then Leningrad, which is now, I think, St. Petersburg, Russia. And it turns out that this fairy tale that she's telling is actually the story of her life and what it was like to live in that time. The story was just so beautiful, and when I got to the end, I literally remember being in bed and going, oh, like I out loud said that, and then I cried happy tears. And I cry a lot, but I don't often cry over a book. It was just such a really beautiful story, and it went from past to present, and I do like when books do that. And I don't know, I fell in love with all of the characters and the dialogue, and it was just such a beautiful story. Highly recommend.
The next one that we actually both had on our list, but I was given the privilege to discuss it, is the guest list.
Yeah.
By Lucy
Foley.
Oh, Lucy Foley. I really liked this one, although for some reason, like, you know the last season of Game of Thrones, how it's like pitch black?
Yes.
In my mind, that's also how this book was.
Well, that's how they describe the setting for sure.
Yeah, but anyway, it is about a group of people that go to a very isolated island, and it's for a wedding, and it mainly follows the bride's sister?
The bride, the sister, the groom.
The bride, the groom, the sister.
Some of the groomsmen, some of the bridesmaids.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very complex narration.
Yes, I forgot that. So it actually, each chapter will be a different guest of the wedding, although it's the same characters repeating. It's not literally a different one. Oh yeah, even like the innkeeper lady at the hotel. But it sort of tells this tangled web of, you know, family and friend secrets and things that have been done to people in the past are coming to light. Sort of the effect of things that have happened on people's lives are sort of coming into picture, and people are realizing like sort of why they've made decisions or why they are the way they are because of things that have happened to them in the past. I don't know, it's very interesting. I mean, it's definitely family dynamics. It's definitely like friendship stuff.
It's murder mystery.
Oh yeah.
The book opens with like a crime scene.
Yes, a body has been found, and you don't know.
You don't know who the body is or
Yes.
who the killer was.
Yes.
So you take the whole story to figure it out.
And the wedding still happens. And I just think the way that Lucy Foley writes is very descriptive. So I think it helped me because when I'm reading, like I'm ascribing faces to people.
Me too.
And how the place looks. And I feel like the way that she wrote made that very easy for me. I felt like I could picture it. It was one of those books where I felt like I was there.
Me too. And I needed to power through it as quickly as possible. Like
I needed to know.
Wanted to know. And
The fact that you don't even know who the dead person is.
I know.
Oh, it adds this level of stress and frustration.
Yes. I will say I've never been so excited to discover who the dead person was.
Right.
Like I've never wanted a character to die more. Another book I super loved this year was Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. This is the prequel to the prequel of Practical Magic, which is one of mine and Caitlin's favorite movies ever. I love Alice Hoffman. I've loved most of her works, even the ones that are not Practical Magic related. And she came out with Rules of Magic a couple of years ago, which is the prequel to Practical Magic, and now she went all the way back to the story of Maria Owens, who, if you've watched the movie, Maria is the woman in the beginning of the film who is like getting ready to be hanged and
pregnant and sobbing alone on an island.
Exactly. It was one of the most beautifully written books that I read all year. I think Alice Hoffman is such a fantastic writer. I was picturing everything that Maria and her daughter were going through. So she has a daughter in the book, and the story evolves of how people in the town that she's currently living in discover that she's a witch, and they want to hang her, and she falls in love with a man that does her dirty, and that's when the Owens curse comes about. And you like learn all of the backstory of the movie, and it just was so fun. And also I was rooting for Maria the whole time. She was so protective of her daughter, who gets ripped away from her at one point in the book, and you have to like try to get through to the point where they're reunited, and it just like, oh my God, it was so heartwarming and so wonderfully written. And I just am forever a fan of Alice Hoffman's. It's like magical realism, but more on the realism side. Like, I am truly believing everything that I'm reading. I will put a curse on you.
I'll put a spell on you.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Another book that I really enjoyed this year, which I think even in my own mind is slightly controversial, is Little Fires Everywhere. I read it, again, prior to there being a show about it, and I actually really liked the book, so I was very excited to watch the show. I started watching the show, and I don't even think I finished it. Because I was so frustrated by the decisions that they made to change the story. Kerry Washington's character in the show, in the book, is Chinese? Korean. I cannot remember. And so they changed it into being a black family, and I think because of I don't know, it did change a little bit, and I was kind of disappointed because I feel like there are so few Asian characters on television that and that story just isn't told very often, and while I do think that it, the way that the show was beautiful, but I just wish they had stuck with some of the details of the book. But I did think it was really interesting because it did talk about race and ethnicity and money and status and teenagers doing things that teenagers do, and how complex that is. And I think it shows things that teenagers struggle with, but it also shows things parents struggle with, not as parents, but as human beings. That the way I think you realize that your parents are just as flawed as you are as you become an adult. It is a family drama, but it also talks about like socioeconomic status a lot, and like how you become who you are with and without money.
Okay.
And privilege. It talks a lot about privilege, and I just think, especially this year, or last year, technically, I thought it was an important book to read because of the story that it was telling. I just thought that it dealt with themes that I think were especially applicable, while like the Black Lives Matter movement it's still happening, but like was happening originally. Everyone's stories are tied in together. The first scene is pretty much the family waking up to their house being on fire.
I was gonna say, like, is there an actual fire?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened? The first page, like the very first chapter, is actually the Reese Witherspoon's family's house, this giant mansion in a beautiful neighborhood, on fire, and the children. Some of the children are like arriving home, they're seeing it burning.
Oh, wow.
But their sister's missing. And so then that's how the whole thing kicks off.
Okay.
So they do that, and then they go to like present day, and then they flash back.
I've heard the book is great.
The book is great. But I think I made it hard for me to put it on as my favorite books of the year because I hated the show so much.
The first book that I read of 2020 was an Elin Hilderbrand book that I had never read before. It was actually one that I picked because I went to a book signing of hers in October of last year, and with our friend Courtney. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Courtney. We miss you.
We do miss you. And someone in the audience asked Elin, what's your favorite book that you've ever written? And she said, it's actually one of my first books ever, and it's called The Blue Bistro. And so I put Blue Bistro on my list of things to read last year. It was the first one I read. I loved it. I think I gave it a 4-star, but it like Caitlin and I were saying, I think I would give it a 4.5.
Yes.
If I could. All of her books are based on Nantucket. It's picturesque. It's beautiful. There's usually a tryst and a love triangle sometimes. So this was the story of a woman who was moving to Nantucket on a whim after being in Colorado for a long time. She had a failed relationship. I'm pretty sure her boyfriend like stole all of her money that she'd been saving. And so she moved to Nantucket, rented a room in an apartment, or in a house rather, with several people who worked as bartenders or wait staff in a restaurant called the Blue Bistro, which is like the most amazing restaurant on the island. People put reservations in like a year ahead of time. They're booked solid all summer. And so she goes to this restaurant to apply for a job, and the owner gives her a job as the hostess, which sounds easy, but is actually very difficult with a restaurant like that. Like she's got to make sure that everyone is happy and the regulars are accommodated, and like, I remember your favorite food is this and you don't like this, and blah blah blah. And she has a little romantic relationship with the owner of the bistro.
Mistake. Red flag.
Who is best friends with the chef in the restaurant,
Okay.
which is a female, and she's very ill, and they've decided that this is the last year for the Blue Bistro. They're going to close it down forever afterwards.
I'm so sad. I've heard the inn closed up there and the restaurant.
I know, really, we just shouldn't even go anymore.
Nantucket, I've heard everything's closing.
It's really going to shit.
Based on Elin Hilderbrand's books.
I found it to be one of those books that I was really invested in. I really enjoyed the storyline. Again, it was unlike anything I'd read before. I love learning about the restaurant industry. I used to work in a restaurant, and I really loved being a waitress. It's such a weird thing to say, but I loved that environment. And so I would get hungry because they talked about like the most delicious bread ever that this world-renowned chef made.
And we never learned how to make bread this year.
I did.
Not really delicious bread.
I did.
Oh, okay, sorry. I should get back. I didn't get any really delicious bread.
No, Mike ate it all. Are you kidding me? Make him a loaf of bread and he eats it in one day. I'm not even kidding. I liked the entire storyline. She's making new friendships. She's leaving a like nasty past behind and building this entirely new life for herself in a totally different climate, and she knows no one. She meets up with a couple of guys that are just like trash, and I don't know. You would like it, Caitlin.
I was about to say, I think I wrote it.
And it's fun to read how her writing has evolved. She's an author who likes to give you like surprise snippets of past characters in books. And so reading from the beginning, it's like, oh my god, that's that person from way back then.
Oh, I think I would like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Fun. The last one I have was actually the last book that snuck right in this year. And it was something that Danielle gave me last time I was at her house. And then I had been off of the reading train for like a solid 2 months, I think.
I knew this was going to pull her back in.
And it worked. First of all, it was like 430 pages.
It was a big book.
It's a big book. But
it's 451 pages.
Exactly. So it's A Cozy Cornwall Christmas by Jane Linfoot. It is as sweet as the cover implies.
Yes.
And I think that was for me part of it. I think I read a lot of books that dealt with like very challenging subject matters this year. That's great, but it's exhausting.
Yes.
And so I think I didn't mix in enough like fun reads into my mix. I think that's why I burnt out on reading a little bit. So the main character, Ivy, is a year out from like a really traumatic event, which you don't really know 100% of the details up front.
Yeah. And
she is committing to sort of helping set up this elaborate, beautiful Christmas for someone else. And because Christmas always reminds her of this experience, and so she likes to focus on something else and like do for others so that she can like help give back and make herself feel better. But she ends up at this beautiful castle.
A castle.
In Cornwall.
I mean, it's like the frickin' holiday on the cover.
So pretty much it's as if Danielle's super rich sibling was like, hey Caitlin, come decorate this castle and help me take pictures for my social media.
Right.
So she goes up there and it's like 2 weeks. So she drives up to Cornwall and she's getting out of the car and she's like, I'm gonna look for this old crotchety man who's the caretaker.
The innkeeper.
They're always old and crotchety. And I was like, oh god, he's gonna be hot.
And naked.
And no kidding. No.
He's hot and naked.
2 seconds later she rounds the corner and he's hot and naked. But the part that I thought was very interesting, is that a spoiler? Should I not say that? If it's in the first 30 pages, it shouldn't.
I agree.
She's met him before. And I feel like that one little bit of information made it different than every other type of book that I read. Like, I thought, oh God, like, of course, she's gonna fall in love with this freaking caretaker of this castle, and he's hot and wonderful. But it was actually really interesting because the twist was is that she had met him once previously, years before, and had, like, had one weekend with friends where she, like, fell in love with him. Nothing ever happened. They went their separate ways. And then years later, she finds him again, except there's this whole sort of, like, miscommunication.
Yes, big time.
So, like, a common theme with most romantic stories, I like a push and pull.
And there's a push and pull.
I like a Pride and Prejudice, like, hate you, love you.
Yeah, this whole book was like that.
Yes, so that, I think that was one of the reasons I really liked it. But I did also realize, because I was trying to figure out, I was like, why am I so drawn to this story? Why do I like this so much? And again, I think it has to do with the way that the author writes it. It's very descriptive, and my favorite Harry Potter book is the first one, which seems unrelated.
Oh.
But I think why is because they do so much to describe the scene and all of the details. And this is heavy with that because she is decorating a castle for Christmas. So there's days and days and days, hundreds of pages describing the candles and the ornaments and the handmade everything.
Every room has a Christmas tree in it.
And they all have twinkly fairy lights. And I feel like she describes it enough that I was able to full on build out this castle in my mind like a Sims house.
Me too.
And I think that's why I loved it. That's why I love the first Harry Potter book when they talk about Diagon Alley. And
they were doing a lot of baking.
A lot of which I love too. There's baking, and then there's also, like, you know, there's multiple generations within this house, so that was kind of fun. It's a romantic Christmas book. If it's not a little bit tacky, are you even doing it right?
I agree.
Like, that's the thing, like, yes, I was definitely eye-rolling throughout it, but the rest of the story made up for it. I liked that there were multiple relationships happening, and they were in varying states. So there were some successful marriages, there were some failing marriages, there were, you know, a single older adult woman who's been married multiple times and trying to make it work and figuring out who she is, like, even in her 60s. But yeah, I would recommend it. I liked it. I would also look for other Jane Linfoot books.
And in fact, I did after I read it, because I was like, this is cute as shit. What a way to break up the, like, dark stuff I read.
It's like the Miss Honey of books.
Yes. Because a lot of what I'm reading is Miss Trunchbull. An author that I had never read before and that came highly recommended, actually from a gal I went to high school with, Leslie, was B.A. Paris. Had never heard of the author, had seen the covers, but never committed the name to memory.
It sounds very familiar.
So I read 2 of her books this year, actually. And the one that I finished most recently was called Behind Closed Doors. I think that it's probably her most popular book. And it was very dark.
Wait, is this the one that you had to pause?
Yes.
Oh, this is what I'm going to read next.
Yes. I have it downstairs for you. You're going to blow through it.
Oh, I'm excited.
So this follows the story of a woman that's about our age. I think she's in her very early 30s. And
I'm 29.
It's actually based in the UK. I feel like almost every book I read is based in England.
Because it's better.
It is better.
You know what?
Is that?
Not a lot of books set in Canada, though.
Oh, I love Canada.
Right.
So
I love Canada.
I do love Canada. I've been twice. I'd like to go again.
But it just sounded like a general statement.
I love Canada. So she meets this perfect man.
Red flag.
Of course she does.
That's the thing.
So she has a much younger sister who is 17 years old and has Down syndrome, and the sister is living in not like an assisted care facility, but she's like gone away to school where they like help her learn how to have a job.
Like a boarding school for kids with special needs?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. So they teach them like real world situations and stuff like that. And so every weekend the main character in the story will take her sister to do fun things around England and London, and at one point they go to an outdoor concert in a park, and she sees this really handsome, attractive man one week, and then another week they go back and he's there again by himself, and he comes over and starts dancing with her sister, and she thinks, wow, he's dancing with my sister and like really welcoming her and making her feel included, and that's just so lovely. So they start dating, and this woman has had many failed relationships because she wants to invite her sister Millie to live with her when she turns 18. And so no other suitor was willing to accept that kind of a lifestyle adjustment. This man that she meets is a dream man. He's a lawyer. He's very successful. He welcomes Millie with open arms, wants to build an entire house for them and like make her bedroom the yellow vision of her dreams because yellow's her favorite color. So they have a whirlwind romance and they decide to get married. And on their wedding night, they go back to the hotel room that they've rented and her husband disappears while she's taking a bath. She comes out of the bath. He's nowhere to be found. She calls him repeatedly. No answer. She leaves him voicemails. She decides to take a nap. She wakes up the next morning. He still hasn't returned. She's freaking out thinking that something awful's happened to him. Calls and texts him again. He replies to her via text and says, "This kind of characteristic is very unbecoming on you. You need to calm down. I'll be around in a few hours to pick you up." So you're like, oh, hell no. He's like, "I'll be around to collect you in a couple hours so we can make our flight to Thailand for our honeymoon."
Cool.
So
neat.
They get to Thailand, to their hotel, and he tells her, "Party's over, honey. All that stuff that happened before, that's no longer gonna fly." And he essentially treats her like a prisoner. He makes her stay on the balcony of the hotel room all day long, locks her outside. He goes and he gallivants and does all this shit around Thailand that he wants to do. She's like, oh my God, oh my God. He tells her if she's gonna try to escape, he'll find her, he'll kill her, he'll kill Millie. All of this is so fucked up and crazy, but what you're not understanding is that he is portraying this perfect life and this perfect relationship with his perfect wife. They invite people over to their house to host dinner parties, and she has to like prepare these really elaborate meals and be the perfect wife and hostess all the time, and she does all of that flawlessly. But then at the end of the night, he locks her in a room that has nothing other than a bed and a bathroom. She doesn't get any books. She doesn't get even like her own closet in there. He keeps her in there, locked away as a prisoner, and he feeds her when he wants to. Feeds her when he wants to. She loses a ton of weight.
Where's Millie?
Millie is still at the boarding school.
Oh, okay.
But the whole story is just like a total actual mind fuck.
I'm really excited.
It's a mind fuck of a book. I really enjoyed it. I will say if you have like very big triggers with domestic violence or anything, like he's not beating her, but it is abuse. Yeah. It's serious emotional abuse and psychological abuse, like beyond. Oh God, you just wait until you, oh God. There were times when I was like, oh my God, no.
Oh no, can't wait.
It was really good. I read it in a day. It was so good. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those where you're like, what's he gonna do next? The last one I wanted to talk about is called Lovely War. It's by Julie Berry, and I just have a knack for picking war books for some reason, especially World War II.
I never read a war book.
I always somehow gravitate towards it. I'm not even trying to, but it just happens. I'm going to explain this to you, and you're going to be like, huh?
Can't wait.
Can I just read you the synopsis? I feel like truly this is the best way to do it because it's bizarre. It's 1917 and World War I is at its zenith when Hazel and James first catch sight of each other at a London party. She's a shy and talented pianist. He's a newly minted soldier with dreams of becoming an architect. When they fall in love, it's immediate and deep, and cut short when James is shipped off to the killing fields. Aubrey Edwards is also headed toward the trenches. A gifted musician who's played Carnegie Hall, he's a member of the 15th New York Infantry, an all-African-American regiment being sent to Europe to help end the Great War. Love is the last thing on his mind, but that's before he meets Colette Fournier, a Belgian chanteuse? I don't know what a chanteuse is, I apologize, who's already survived unspeakable tragedy at the hands of the Germans. 30 years after these four lovers' fates collide, the Greek goddess Aphrodite tells their stories to her husband.
What?
And her lover, Ares.
What?
In a luxe Manhattan hotel room at the height of World War II.
What? Wait, but what? Aphrodite? Literally Aphrodite?
Literally Aphrodite.
I don't understand.
It is like mythology and historical fiction meet and collide together, and also like romanticism. She seeks to answer the age-old question, why are love and war eternally drawn to one another? But her quest for a conclusion that will satisfy her jealous husband uncovers a multi-threaded tale of prejudice, trauma, and music, and reveals that war is no match for the power of love. A sweeping, multi-layered romance with a divine twist set in the perilous days of World Wars I and II. So yes, you're reading war fiction. What is a chartreuse?
Chanteuse is a female singer of popular songs, especially in a nightclub.
Okay, yeah. Really complex story, really beautifully written. I think I gave it a 4-star because it was just so different and beautiful. I know that sounds wonky,
yeah,
but I still very much highly recommend it. You learn a lot about the prejudice that was very prevalent and probably still is in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And there are sad parts and there are very happy parts, and the story transcends over many, many years. So it was very interesting, very different. I know that a lot of people have rated it very highly, so I don't think you'd be disappointed in it, as long as you go into it knowing that it's not going to be like a typical love story, a typical war story, or a typical mythology story. It is a triad of all of those. A triad of all of those, if you will. Different.
A love triangle?
A tryst.
Oh well, okay. I said it already, but I'll say it again. Comment, like, and subscribe.
Ring the bell for notifications.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
Ring-a-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding dong. Watch our last video. Watch our next video. Watch all the videos. Make sure you leave a comment telling us what books you loved this year or didn't.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's all we have for you.
Yeah, thanks for watching us all through 2020.
Okay, we love you so much. Thank you always for sticking with us. Also, if you have suggestions for content, please leave them down below, whether it's a podcast, YouTube, live, tutorial, I don't know.
Whatever it is, we'll try to execute.
We'll try.
Bye.
Bye.
Cut it.